PeachCast. 언어를 잘하게 되는 방법은?
So how did we get good at English, do you think? How do people get good at English? What are your thoughts?
I think making mistakes a lot helps you definitely because I think especially for Koreans, we are so obsessed with perfectionism. So we are really afraid to speak broken English in front of others, especially in front of Koreans. So I think making mistakes means just getting over the perfectionism. But I think that's the only way or fastest way to get better, especially in speaking English.
So like when you first start a language, right? I feel like everyone has their style of learning. But like if you're first starting a language, you don't know how to read, you don't know what the letters are, you don't know how they sound. What do you think might be like a good way to even like start from that point and go from there?
Yes, I think memorizing sentences help you a lot because like I learned through that way because my first English teacher at 학원 let me memorize like many sentences in the textbook. And I just didn't know how the sentence works, but I kind of naturally noticed like how it works, like by memorizing many sentences. So I could see which pattern English has, and that really helped me a lot to figure out how I can make English sentences. And when I took grammar classes after memorizing all those sentences, like it helped me a lot to understand English grammar because there was actually an order for English language. And I just didn't know it. But I just like assumed there might be a rule or order for that. And just checking it, I was true, was really like interesting procedure. So for me, definitely like memorizing many sentences helped me.
Like memorizing the sentences got you used to just how it should naturally sound. Interesting.
Yeah, right.
That's
What
cool.
about you? You learned Korean, so
I mean, to be honest, learning how to read Korean was super easy. And as far as like languages go, it was super easy.
yes, like probably taking 2 hours.
I was able to. I watched one YouTube video and I was able to like somewhat read it. And I was like, wow, I learned that so fast. That was crazy.
Yeah, right.
Which was fun because when you travel to Korea, I didn't know what I was reading, but I could still read it. And so I found it super fun just to like, because I did like a study abroad, I would take a bus. We'd take a bus somewhere and I just like read stuff on the sign on the wall. And I'd find it interesting because I could read it, which was, I feel like not many languages have that, which is cool. So that part was actually pretty easy for me. As far as English goes, I think in terms of like practicing sentences is probably better because English always has like so many different rules for how things should sound compared to Korean.
Right.
Like, because in English, sometimes the C is k, sometimes the C is s, sometimes the C is like sh. You know what I mean? So So it's like has 3 different sounds. So like which one do you use? So I could see that being kind of a difficulty just practicing sounds. I think for me, when it came to like first starting Korean, it was like learning important grammar. Like for example, like I've learned probably like 60 different lessons of grammar, but there's only like 10 or 12 that I use when I speak Korean. For example, like future tense, past tense, present tense of like to be, right? So like 이다, like 이에요, right? Or 을 거예요, like that. So for me, it was like learning those like really important grammar structures allowed me to just learn vocabulary and just kind of stack them like this.
Yeah, right.
Is how I found it to be the most effective, probably.
Yes, I agree. So for adult students, I think learning grammar is the fastest way because like grammar means patterns, right?
Yeah.
So if you figure out the patterns of that language, I think that's the fastest way to make sentences, and that's the fastest way to learn that language.
Yeah.
So for adult students, especially learning grammar is the fastest way. But the thing is, language learners don't like grammar classes. So even though that's very important, like just approaching to grammar sounds or seems so difficult, so they don't like it.
Yeah. It's interesting because I really like grammar, because every time I learn new grammar, it feels like I'm unlocking a new skill, is what it feels like to me. It's like I'm unlocking something new. Like I get like a reward, like cha-ching, unlock that, new skill achieved.
Oh, that's good.
That's kind of how I see it. That's how I see grammar.
Yeah.
Maybe it depends on the grammar book, probably. Because I think there's some bad grammar books and there's some really good grammar books. For example, like shout out to Talk to Me in Korean. Their grammar books are very like one thing of grammar and you just practice that. Where some English grammar books, it's all over the place. You're learning like 10 different grammars at once. And that would be like so confusing in the brain.
Right.
So the way they did that with like, here's this grammar, now you can use it this way. And it kind of like, it made it feel like I was like learning like a new skill in like a game almost.
Yeah.
Which I really liked.
Yes, learning a grammar like that is really, really important. And that's what I emphasize in my classes as well. Because I only teach one grammar at one time. And then I just teach my students like this grammar principle and then let them practice with that grammar for 1 whole hour. So that way they can just embrace that grammar for that 1 hour, and then they can make sentences with that grammar, so they can see it really works, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important.
Yeah.
But for most of Korean students, we learn grammar like very difficult way in school days because like our teachers back then taught us grammars like very difficult way. Like we had this like all those grammatical terms, and it made like English very complicated. So many Koreans hate English grammar.
Yeah.
So I think that just made us a like big barrier for learning English again, or like just approaching to English like easily. So
Because like there was this grammar book that I taught an adult class with at my job, and the grammar book had them learning a and the right from the start, and also plurals. So a, the, and plurals, which is probably like the hardest part of English.
Yeah,
And so these are like brand new learners trying to learn a and the and plurals. I'm like, this grammar book is not what they need.
yeah.
So it's like, I think it's really important just to learn like maybe like I'd say in like a language, there's probably like a top 20 or top 15 grammars that you can learn, and you'll be actually able to have most of conversations with that grammar usage.
Yeah, right.
Like, will, like I will, or like I have to, or like I can. Like just those alone, you can already do so much with that.
Yeah. I agree. So I tell my students like even if like this English vocabs of middle schoolers, you can just like manage pretty much of daily conversations in English. But they think like for speaking conversational English could take like a lot more efforts or time or a lot more vocabularies. So it's in their head, it's in their imagination, but it's not. I mean, like it is hard to speak fluently, but still like you can manage like basic conversations with basic vocabularies and basic grammars, right?
Yeah.
So trial is the most important thing though, but they think they need to be ready for so many things.
Yeah, because I found like I learned these grammars, but then if I didn't like actually apply it, like for example, like this is in high school, I learned all the way to say like 거예요, right? Like 할 거예요, right? And if I didn't like speak it out loud, or if I didn't write example sentence with it, I had a harder time actually using it in proper like situations. So yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
It's definitely important to learn it and then also use it at the same time is an important thing.
Yeah, right.
But I do think Koreans need to get better at the whole usage part because I think they're always so scared.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's, yeah, which might be just a culture thing, maybe.
Yes, I think part of it's because of our culture, because we don't want to be ashamed in front of other people, right? So, yeah, culturalism is the biggest thing, I think. And we are not usually surrounded with English-speaking environment. So it's very hard to find a situation that I can speak in English. So if you're surrounded with Korean people, like I don't know, you become so small, you know, for some reasons. And if you find a foreign friend, then, you know, you can talk to them, but still, like, it needs a lot of courage to approach them and then to talk to them in English, right? Because, like, if you still think that your English is not enough, then you cannot go there, like, randomly and then to speak to a stranger. Like, it's still very difficult, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've had plenty of examples where I'm talking to people and they're like, 영어 진짜 잘하고 싶어요. 그러게 말했는데 they would say that to me. And I'm like, let's practice right now. Let's practice 5 minutes. And they're like, 안 돼요, 안 돼요. And I'm like, what do you mean? You said you want to practice. And then instantly, as soon as like, I'm like, let's do it, they like get super scared and back off.
Yeah, right.
And so I think it's just getting past that is a problem for a lot of Korean learners, I think.
So when random students comes to me for consulting or for their level test, like let's say his or her level is intermediate, and I tell him or her like, oh, you can just start from now, like right away, intermediate class. But they always say, oh, teacher, I just need 1 extra week to be prepared. Like, what do you mean? You've been prepared for this whole time to come here, but they still need extra time, like extra like week for being prepared. And I just didn't get it because I don't know, like it's because of fear, I think.
Maybe they just want to touch up on some things and improve a little bit more before they start, which maybe if they haven't been practicing, I could see that. Like so because like for Korean, I'm always like, if I don't do it a lot, if I don't do it every day, I definitely see a decline in skill.
Yeah, right.
But that also could just because it's a little bit of a newer language and I haven't been doing it a lot of my life.
Yes.
So, because I'm only about 2 years into Korean, about 2 years. So, yeah. But I do think also doing it every day.
Oh, yes. That's very, very important.
Yeah,
Yes.
every day.
Yeah.
Even, and I tell people online, like, again, I talk to people and they're like, 영어 어떻게 잘해요? 어떻게 잘 할 수 있어요? How can I be good at English? And I'm like, just do it like 10 minutes a day. And they're like, 진짜요? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, 아닌 것 같은데? I'm like, no, that's like, if you just do that, if you do it every day just a little bit, you'll see like an increase in skill for sure.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's just one of those things that gotta start.
Yeah, right. Because I think, let's say, if you study English for 60 minutes, but I think it's way better to study 10 minutes for 6 days, right?
Yeah.
So for doing it every day is the key.
Because if you do that, your brain will get so used to hearing the language, it'll just, over time, it kind of like, do you know exponents? It's a math term, like exponentially grow. Not like this, but it's like that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's kind of like
right.
exponents.
Yes. I think for language learners, like which I personally experienced as well, like it doesn't grow like this. It grows like this, like stairs. You know? So like you really want to give at this point. But if you just skip it, then you just like go one level up like at some point. And like it goes like this long and boring process like for a while, but if you give up, then you just like stop here. But if you just keep doing it, then you know you will just like jump again. So I think like it's very hard to master one language because it takes patience and like very long time. But if you just keep doing it, then you will survive, right? So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is. I do think because like my dad learns Spanish, and he actually he does that thing where just practice a little bit every day.
Oh,
And his skill has gotten. He's pretty good at Spanish these days.
wow, really?
Yeah.
For how long did he do it?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. He's been interested in like learning Spanish for a while.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's like his Spanish is probably like similar to my Korean, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, but he did it every day.
Yeah, he just does like he listens to podcasts, just like having your brain just think about it a little bit, right? Because man, when my parents were here in Korea, I was speaking English like all the time, like 90% of the day.
Yeah.
Which before then it would be like, I don't know, 20% of the day, right? And I noticed like when I'm speaking with these Korean people, I'm having a harder and harder, like as my vacation went on, my conversations were getting like harder and harder and harder. I'm like, what is happening? And eventually on like the last day with my parents, I'm like, my mom's like, what did he say? And I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
And it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I was starting to like panic a little bit. Because usually I could like, even if I didn't understand everything, I could get the gist of what was happening. It was like, it seemed like each day as it went by without practicing, my Korean was just like, choo. And I was like,
right.
no, it's going away.
Yeah.
So yeah, then I was like, I got to get back. And I actually listening to our podcast edits for our last podcast helped quite a bit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, because I could feel that the last podcast we were taking was in Korean, right? So I know how well you could speak in Korean in that podcast. And then after you spending like vacation, like with only English, and then like when we talked, I felt like, oh, his Korean got a little bit. So but for a language learners, like it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Like for me, it happened as well. Like I didn't speak English for a while, and I just clearly see that my English level got lower. And I learned Chinese like quite hard for 3 years in my college days. So I was in a intermediate level, but I just didn't do it, and I just never thought about it for 8 years, 9 years, and now I just only can say baby Chinese like hello, did you eat? My name is something very basic. So I regret that I didn't keep doing it, but it happens so naturally.
I don't know, I haven't tried this myself, but I have heard that like once you learn a second language, the third language is easier, the fourth language even easier, which is interesting because I've never really attempted that before, but be interesting to see how that works. Like, because I'm sure I found out in, what is that area called in Seoul? Oh, what's that area called? Myeongdong. In Myeongdong? Myeongdong in Seoul. I guess part-time workers have to speak English, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, right?
Yeah,
4
right.
languages. And I heard that, I was like, wow, that's like, that doesn't sound super easy.
Yeah, right.
So that was impressive, I thought.
Yes, right.
Do they get paid more?
I think so. I don't know
I would
how
hope
much.
so.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Like the same person's getting at Starbucks is getting paid, is the one in Jeonju, but he can speak 4 languages. So I would hope they would get paid more.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm leaving this job. I don't know. So,
Good point.
Yeah. Well, any takeaways? I think important for language learning every day, key grammars, and maybe just like key vocabulary, probably. So that's probably my 3 things.
Yeah.
Anything?
For my 3 things, memorizing sentences, learning a grammar, and just like give up your perfectionism and just doing it every day. Could be like, that's 4. Could be your key.
Nice. Yeah. Giving up perfection. It's interesting. One last thing, because in American culture, for some reason, like everyone is like super confident in America.
Yeah,
It's
I
like
can feel it.
they could have like zero experience on anything and they'll
Yes.
go in like, I'm the best.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like compared to, it's like almost opposite of Korea. And so it's like, I think,
Do you
with-
also think like that? I'm the best.
not usually like that, but like I've noticed like compared to like the average Korean person, I'm definitely more confident. And it's kind of an American thing. But there's some people like in like my high school, they'd be like, you know, it's their first time, like watch this, you know,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is kind of impressive actually, right? And I think if you have that mindset with language, it can help so much. So I think it's definitely helped me with my Korean because yeah, sometimes I'm wrong, but I'm going in so confidently that I like gaslight the Korean person to think they're incorrect.
Yeah,
which I've
yeah.
done before. Which I forgot
yeah.
what I forgot what it was, but
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
I do think that's a cultural thing probably.
Oh, yeah.
So
your American mind helped you to learn Korean better, right?
probably just
Yeah.
having more confidence with stuff.
Yeah. But I totally agree.
Yeah. And I think because like in America, everyone is confident. It kind of forces you to have that mindset as well. Where in Korea, everyone's kind of like not confident, which kind of makes you become
Yeah.
that direction as well.
Yes,
possibly.
I think that's related to this humble culture. Because like if you're too confident in Korean society, like you can be seemed like
arrogant.
Yes. So our culture pushes like people to be humble because that's a cultural norm. Like even if you're the best, you know, your attitude still needs to be humble. You know, like that's like what we admire for. So I think that's culture made us like look like less confident or, you know, like just denying what we've achieved or whatever, you know. So every culture has pros and cons, but for language learning, I think that's not working well, you know. So
Do you think, because like I have some students that are younger and their confidence is really high, but I think I'm just assuming with Korean culture, right? It's so like against that, it kind of like chips away at it a little bit. Like
Yes.
it kind of like goes away when they get older.
Yeah.
Because I have this one student, I make him do example sentences, and his word was success. I was like, make a sentence with success. And he goes to the whole class, I am success.
I am success.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the whole class is like, wow, this guy, right? But that's actually like, for language learning, that's what you want.
Yes.
So it's kind of I think Korean culture maybe kind of like gets rid of that a little bit.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
students.
Yes,
which is a
like
bummer.
after going through this competitive school environment and just like, you know, being in the society, like pushes you to be humble, you know? And, you know, if you're like too unique, then you're like too conspicuous.
Yeah, people
And
kind of
then-
like break you down a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. So,
Which is 아쉽네요.
yeah, very, very 아쉽네요.
Yeah. Too bad.
Yeah, too bad, right? Yeah.
So that kid was really funny though. I was like, I won't say his name, but I was like, make a sentence with success. And he's just like, I am success. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah. If you know like any other ways to improve your language learning or your skills of language, then just like share with us and then please subscribe and leave likes and comments.
Yes.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
PeachCast.